In this video, I'm going to give my first impressions of the Canon M6 Mark I and talk about how it compares to the M50 and what I think of buying this camera in 2021. So without further ado, let's get right into my first impressions. So I bought the Canon M50 in 2018 when it was pretty new still, and then I ended up selling it, and then I just bought it again a few months ago, and that's what I'm using right now to film this video, as well as a bunch of my previous videos for the last few months. So I pretty much know most of the ins and outs of the M50, and I've really been loving using it for my YouTube videos and for any sort of photography that I do. I've even done some paid photo shoots with the M50, and it's been really good and worked perfect for me. And so I ended up just purchasing the M6 because I got a really good deal on it, and I wanted to test it out and see how it compared with the M50 and make some videos about it. And so stay tuned for more videos about the M6 and the M50 on my channel. Definitely subscribe and hit the like button if you want to see more. But anyways, right off the bat, right when I used the M6 for the first time, I realized that this camera is basically the exact same camera as the M50. So let me go a little more in depth on that. The Canon M6 was released a year before the M50, so it's kind of understandable that they might have similar specs. However, they almost have the exact same specs, and the only real differences between the two is that the M50 can record 4K video, kind of. It really only records one frame rate at 4K with really bad autofocus, but it still records 4K video. And also the M50 has an electronic viewfinder built into it. And obviously the two cameras are built differently, the dials are in different positions, the screens are a little different and stuff like that, but the main specs and main qualities of these cameras are almost identical. I guess one more thing to note is that the M50 has a fully articulating screen while the M6 just has a flip screen. Now they both flip forward if you want to record yourself or if you want to vlog with them, but the M50 just has a little more flexibility with the screen. But also a lot of people prefer the way the M6 screen is, which is similar to like the A6400 and a lot of Sony's APS-C cameras. But as I was saying, these cameras have the exact same megapixel count, the exact same size sensors, the same photo settings, pretty much the same video settings, except the M50 records 4K video. They both have Canon's EOS M mount, they both have built-in flashes, they both have flip screens, they both have microphone inputs, they both have a single SD card slot, they both have dual pixel autofocus, and so on and so forth. These are almost the exact same cameras. So now let's kind of focus in on some of the differences and talk about which one is best for which type of person. And so one of the big differences between these two is the build. So the M6 is a smaller build because it doesn't have a built-in viewfinder. So the M6 is a little smaller and it's going to fit into smaller spaces and smaller camera bags. And so that smaller build, it gives up the viewfinder. And so when considering the M6, you need to think, are you going to use the viewfinder? If you're going to use this camera for vlogging and just vlogging or just to make YouTube videos and record yourself, you're probably not going to use the viewfinder. However, if you're planning on using the M6 for like photo shoots, more professional photography, especially outdoors and things like that, you're probably going to want to use the viewfinder. And so in that case, the M50 might be the camera for you, or you might want to buy the viewfinder that attaches to the M6. And the next thing to think about is what type of video quality do you need? So the M6 and M50 have the exact same 1080p at 60 frames a second, 30 frames a second, or 24 frames a second. However, the M50 kind of gives a little bit of an upgrade and can shoot 4K at 24 frames a second without dual pixel autofocus. And so if you're doing narrative work or like trying to get into filmmaking, not vlogging, but filmmaking, the M50 might have the extra edge because you're probably going to use manual focus for filmmaking. And the 4K is a lot sharper, has a higher bit rate, and is overall better image quality, except it does crop in even more on the crop sensor. So it crops in an extra, I think 1.6 or 1.7 times on the already 1.6 times crop sensor. So it's like over a 3 times crop when you use the 4K. And so that's why I think the M50 doesn't really have 4K, even though it technically does. They use it for marketing specs saying it does have 4K, but it really isn't super usable unless you want to do narrative work where you're going to be pulling focus manually and you can get the right lenses to get the right focal lengths that you need with the extra crop. So long story short, you're probably not going to be using the 4K on the M50, which means the M6 is almost the exact same camera. But the big kicker here is that it's a lot cheaper than the M50. So you can pick up the M6 used on eBay for $300 to $350. Meanwhile, the M50 is still closer to $500 used. So by going with the M6 and buying a used copy on eBay, you can be saving yourself up to like $200. So with the extra $100 to $200 that you're saving by going with the M6, you can get yourself a nice microphone or an extra lens or a tripod or a monopod or any extra filmmaking equipment to step up the quality even more than just having an M50 and not having that extra equipment. And that's really why I think the M6 Mark I is the way to go over the M50 unless you need those specific things that I talked about. And so all in all, I would definitely recommend picking up the M6 if you want to get a cheap camera to make vlogs with, or for photography, or anything where you're not going to need over 1080p video or over 24 megapixels or a full frame sensor or anything crazy like that. This is like the perfect kind of mid-budget camera to get. And so that wraps this video up. Like I said, go down and hit the subscribe button if you want to see more M6 or M50 videos in the future, and hit the like button on this video if you enjoyed it. It'll really help my channel out, and I'd really, really appreciate it. And so that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.